This week we're heading back to the northern island of Hokkaido, not to have a look at my place again, but to look at Otaru, which is about 2.5 hours north of my house. Otaru has become very popular amongst tourists and also for people who want to buy akiyas, mainly because there's a very popular ski resort at Niseko, which is only about an hour and a half away from Otaru. It's very popular with Australians and others. The house prices there for akiya are still very cheap, though I'm told that that's changing. Otaru is about an hour to an hour and a half from New Chitose Airport, which is Sapporo's main airport. I started looking at Otaru because the houses there were pretty cheap, and because it's close to the snow you could always rent them out during the ski season. Well, that was my thinking anyway. But I found that the houses were a bit dull for my liking. They didn't have the kind of character I was looking for, and mostly they didn't have balconies or verandas, and that was one of my prerequisites. But certainly cheap, and you could do worse than buy in Otaru, that's for sure. Prices are going up all the time. As you can see here though, on an akiya mart there are plenty of places available, and most of them are under $20,000. Otaru's popularity is partly based on the fact that a lot of series and movies have been made using Otaru as the location. And I've seen a few of these, such as Beyond Goodbye and Golden Kamuy, and they're really good. But the problem is that the tourists have come in and have created a lot of problems. On Funamizama Slope, for instance, where people like to take photos of the view, they have been blocking traffic, they've been causing disturbances, and they've been trespassing on people's property. And this has led to the council bringing in a whole lot of regulations to try and control them, including ninja.
この船見坂で今月2日、地元の若者たちが写真撮影を行っていました。中には忍者の格
And they've set up an advertising campaign to explain the rules. When I visited Otaru, I stayed here at the Little Barrel. And this is the guest house. As you can see, very pleasant. But I'm heading off now because it's about 8 o'clock and there's a lot of things I have to do and I have to see. I'm going to go and check out a shrine nearby, and then probably go up to Mount Tengu to get a view of the city of Otaru, and have a look at a few other things, and then head off up to Niseko and see how long it takes. And there's my car, the white one down there. Unfortunately, Otaru, like the rest of Japan, there is a premium for parking, and it costs $7 a night to stay in this parking lot near the guest house. But that's Japan for you. I'm going to go for a walk down to Otaru Canal, which is kind of famous as a touristy spot, and hopefully I'll find it. It's very quiet here and not as cold as I thought it would be. But I'm here in May, so it's not winter. As you can see, most of the modern places are fairly basic blocks and pretty nondescript. They didn't really have the kind of character that I was looking for. But there are some nice places in Otaru that you could buy. Plenty, in fact, if that's what you're looking for. But I was looking for something with a little bit more character. The older buildings there are really quite interesting because Otaru was an incredibly wealthy city back in the 1800s because of the herring industry. And that wealth translated into the building of a lot of fine pieces of architecture such as this here. And just roaming around the town, you get to see a lot of really nice old buildings everywhere. And that leads us to Otaru Canal, which was created as a waterway where smaller ships could unload cargo from larger vessels and transport it to warehouses along the canal. It's now pretty much a major tourist area. And now we've reached the true canal area. You've got to love these trees. Gorgeous. As you can see, the area has some rustic charm here. Very pleasant. It looks especially impressive at night during winter. when it's all lit up. And here's the shrine, and I'm just going to find some parking and go up to it. Shrines are great places for finding some peace and quiet in Japan because it's often quite noisy everywhere. Of course, there'd have to be a whippersnapper going on somewhere. Quite pretty. And I'd say usually quiet. Oh yeah. Torii gates represent a symbolic boundary between the everyday world and the sacred. This is called Sumiyoshi Shrine. Oh, it's quite a pretty place. And I see that I am not supposed to be filming that, so I better not. These orange or red torii gates are quite pretty. And it's a pretty big complex actually. And you're normally supposed to wash your hands, but I can't see the facility for it. There's usually a dipper. The shrine is considered to enshrine the god of the sea, the god of safe navigation, the god of waka poetry, and the god of safe childbirth. And it's been around for about 150 years in this present location. And there's the noisy culprit. And here's a really interesting, very narrow building that is near the shrine. Amazing place. I don't know how they lived in it. And here's a couple of houses of the locals. Well, that's one of the shrines looked at. I'm not going to go to all of them. There's about 15 spiritual sites in Otaru or around Otaru. Some of them are actually scenic spots like mountains, and that's what I'm going to next, Mount Tengu. There's supposed to be a very good view of the city, and there's a cable car that goes up there, but I'm not going to use that today. It's fairly expensive, like $22, something like that. But I'm going to save that for Niseko and probably go up on the cable car there if it's operating and have a look around there. So I'm not going to spend too much time in Otaru, but I'm going to give you an idea of some of the houses that were available here. Strangely, I thought Otaru would be different to what I'm seeing. It's got some really interesting houses and nice buildings, and it's quite a pleasant little town. But I'm kind of glad that I bought a house away from the city on the other side of the mountain or mountains. Yeah, look, it's nice enough. And a lot of people buy places here to access the snow. So, yeah, nice place. I'd recommend it, but I'm kind of glad that I didn't buy here. Anyway, it's off to Mount Tengu. And then from there, I'm going to go to Niseko and points further south. It's a nice drive up to Mount Tengu, and I'm the only person on the road. It's pretty quiet. I guess May is not the high season, or maybe, you never know. There's a car. It's not like Australian forest. It's a little bit more forgiving, I think. A bit more mellow. I've been considering running survival courses up here since that's something that I did for most of my life. It's a very different environment to the Australian bush or a lot of the places I've been, but then I did teach survival in Sweden as well, which is very similar. So yeah, it's got potential. We'll see. For some reason there's a lot of bugs up here. And you do get a good view. I guess it was worth the drive. Beautiful area. Surrounded by ocean. Nice. So I'm just walking up to the Summit Cafe they have here and see if they have any decent coffee. I got a good day for it. It's pretty clear and the weather is very nice. And that's beautiful Otaru. Unfortunately, it looks like the cafe is closed. Bummer. Would have been nice. A lot of things here open only at like 10 o'clock, which I always find funny, but I suppose there's no one much around anyway, so there you go. And they even have a ski museum. That's kind of cute. I'm not much of a skier, but I'm thinking of getting back into it and doing more cross-country skiing, which I actually quite enjoy. This is pretty interesting. You know, this place is the home of the Ainu people, the original inhabitants of Japan. And I suspect this section is devoted to them. Yeah, anyway, worth a trip up the mountain. I'm not sure if it's worth the money for the ski lift, but if you've got a car, it's quite a nice drive. Seems like a very short distance for the ski lift or the gondola lift for $22. Well, with the exchange rate now, $25. There are some small shrines up here as well, and there's also a zip line for those with an adventurous streak. And you can sit out in the open and watch the view if you want. Just down there. And there's a very short zip line that you can go on. And it ends up down there. Not very far. So anyway, I've decided to forego the coffee at the cafe at the summit and head off now to Niseko, since it's going to take me probably an hour and a half and the day's getting away. And once I've gotten to Niseko, It's only about an hour from there down to my place. This is a chipmunk park, and I don't actually know anything about chipmunks. I guess they're some type of squirrel. I've only read about them before. But there don't seem to be any floating around. They're all probably lying in the shade somewhere. So that's a bit of a bust. I would have liked to have seen a chipmunk in the semi-wild. It turns out that chipmunks are not squirrels, and chipmunks have a stripe on their back, whereas squirrels don't. And these chipmunks are Ezo chipmunks, which are native to Hokkaido. So, learn something new. It looks like they ski here in the winter, but it looks like pretty much a beginner's slope, not very long. Seems I was wrong though, because it's quite extensive and has beginners to advanced slopes. It's also the closest ski resort to Otaru, not very far away at all. And they have night skiing, which gives you this fantastic view of Otaru, and it's also less busier than the day. And you don't have to go all the way to Niseko to enjoy some skiing. There's plenty of things to do in Otaru, such as going to the museum, which houses a lot of interesting stuff. There's also the Blue Cave. There's a stained glass museum. And there's a zoo and an aquarium, but I don't have time this trip to go and have a look at them, as I've got too much to do. One attraction of Otaru for me was the planned opening of the Hokkaido Shinkansen, or bullet train route, through Otaru to Sapporo. Originally planned to open by the end of 2030, due to construction and tunnelling issues, it's now not expected to be completed and operational till 2039. So we're looking at, 13, 14 years from now. When completed, it would mean you could catch a Shinkansen from Tokyo to Otaru, and the trip would take about 4.5 hours. It would be a great trip, but that's not on the cards now for a long time. So I'm leaving Otaru now to head to Niseko, and even though I think Otaru will be quite pleasant and probably a good option to buy a place here, because the houses can be very cheap. I mean, I've seen them for like $6,000 to $10,000. That's US. But of course they require some renovation. And yeah, in my head and from my reading, I had a bit of a different feel about it, and I'm kind of glad that I've gone for a more rural area, because I want someplace a little bit quieter. But Otaru is very pleasant, you know, it's a nice setting. It reminds me of Nagano a bit, but with ocean. Yeah, but pleasant. I'm sure I could live here quite happily, but I'm very happy with the place that I bought. That's on the other side of the mountain range. So Otaru is a good option if you're looking for an akiya, because the houses are quite cheap. The city has a lot of facilities, and it's not far from ski fields. Niseko would probably be about the furthest, and that's only an hour and a half away. But just short of the town itself, there are a number of ski fields as well, like Mount Tengu, which I visited. And there's quite a few other ones in the local area. And if you're not going to be living there, you can always rent it out as an Airbnb in the winter months for the skiers, but you have to make sure that it's in the right zone to allow that. So yeah, Otaru is a good option. If you'd also like to buy a cheap house in Japan, an akiya, then I suggest that you sign up for my 7-step email, which will send you an email every day guiding you through the process of what you need to know and what you need to do in order to buy a cheap house in Japan. It's totally free. All you have to do is send an email to akiyajourney@gmail.com. And in the subject line, just say, email me, and you'll start receiving those emails. If you're enjoying these videos and you feel you're getting something from them, please like, subscribe, and share.